All right, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed those one-on-one sessions. I want to mention, because of an early departure with flights, we would like to direct questions towards the beginning, towards Dr. Levine, if you could, please. And then also from there, you can direct to any of our speakers, any questions that you guys might have that arise from the session or personal advice as well. Please feel free to raise your hand, and we have people with the microphones.
So I'm still reeling from Mr. Foster's have fun and have more fun and have more fun. So Dr. Levine, question for you. It was a pleasure to be with you this morning. But how in your team do you create that culture? Because you're gone a lot and doing a lot of different things, and you let things continue to move in every space that you're at. So talk about your culture, how you create that fun and that ability for your team to see the impact they're making.
Yeah. Thank you for that question. Well, that's something that I learned over time, and being a bit of a reader and having a mindset of always looking to learn and to improve myself, because we're not born with that knowledge, that's for sure, and leadership principles have changed over time. I was alluding to it earlier, but the key really is to create this high-energy learning organization. Peter Senge in the 90s wrote a great book, Learning Organization. Daniel Goleman, Emotional Intelligence. And those two books, kind of help set the stage for leadership principles today. Trust and Inspire, a great new book by Stephen Covey, outlines it well, and I'm a strong believer in their principles, which is all about leadership at every level, and to fill people up so that they know that they can fail, they can make a mistake, they're not micromanaged, they could use an optimistic, creative mindset. So I think organizationally it starts with setting vision from the top and work collectively for that vision. In our practice, we call our vision oral health is health care. And then you have to set purpose. Like Simon Sinek would say, you have to know your why. Why are you doing things? Great brands who know their why are the brands that are the most effective brands today. Why are they doing what they do? And our why is we believe everyone deserves to have a healthy, beautiful smile. And that goes from my practice and our foundation work. And then our value system, core, vision, purpose, values. Our values, we took the acronym JBL, and J stands for, oh man, you're not going to like me for this. J stands for just do it. Joe, I'm sorry. B stands for bring the joy, and L stands for, thank you, Lenny Kravitz, let love rule. And in an organization, if you can bring the joy and the love into your organization and people are feeling inspired to have that optimistic, creative mindset, sky's the limit. Sky's the limit. Now, I will tell you that while I'm here and I was sitting in the back, I'm getting a text and they're asking me questions, and I really wish my team solved it themselves. So it's a whip. It's a work in progress. And I go to Colorado half my month. I go 2 weeks, where I also live, and yes, I am on the phone plenty. But it's a work in progress, and you're constantly, trying to bring people up. The old days, command and control, the opposite of it. Ralph Belasco wrote a great book, Flight of the Buffalo, but it was engage and enroll. And today it's no longer engage and enroll if you really want to be organizationally out in front. You really want to build deep trust and inspire people. Because engage and enroll, you're still kind of managing people. You're kind of setting your vision alone, and you really got to do it together. And so that's what I aspire to do that organizationally.
Perfect.
Thank you. So on the packaging, I read that your toothpaste is vegan, like gluten-free, recycled ready, and like the rest of the list. So how advantageous is it to target customers with such special requests, especially like vegans, people with gluten intolerance, and like sustainable consumers, and even if it's like toothpaste?
Could you say a little louder up here?
Yeah,
A little
sure.
louder.
Yeah, I don't.
So on the packaging,
The formulation.
Oh, on twice.
yes.
Yes, yes. Well, I think Stacy and I can both do a good answer on
Sure,
that.
yeah.
But here's my side of the coin on this. Oral health is health care. What we put in our mouth from a standpoint of nutrition and pH balancing to have a healthy microbiome is going to impact the health of our body. That's just the way it is. The microbiome of the gut, and we all know how important it is, there's the gut-brain axis and the connection of inflammation in the gut and the negative impact on other areas of the body, cognitive function like Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease. That same problem happens in the mouth, this link between inflammation in the mouth and cardiovascular disease, these other diseases. So, there are foods that are inflammatory. So gluten products are inflammatory for many, many people. High fructose corn syrup is very inflammatory. Sugar is the enemy, it's inflammatory. Fantastic book by David Perlmutter, who wrote Brain Grain, the name of his book is called Drop Acid. I was talking about it last night. Sorry for his name, but they drop acid, but he really wanted to grab people. And it's a lot about the metabolic processes of all of these kind of ingredients, like the sugars, okay, like any inflammatory foods. And he does a great job explaining it very well. So on that packaging, what my sons have done is gluten-free and all of these kind of things that are important. Now with toothpaste, you do slightly ingest some of it. And there is some what we call transmucosal upload. But it also impacts the health of the gums in their toothpaste. There's vitamins and antioxidants, so you have gum health, collagen synthesis through vitamin C. Stacy's products, if you look at her packaging, which is a really great question. Unfortunately, I got to run out of here in a little, but she can talk endlessly about it because they've built their brands based on health and looking at labels and seeing what's on the ingredient list and having a clear understanding how relevant that is for your health. We have to take ownership of our health. We have to take a wellness approach. We can't wait till inflammatory disease hits us. It's too late, little too late. And that's why we have such healthcare expenses in this country. We got to get it early.
It's funny with the whole,
Yeah.
oh. With the whole like rise of the natural food industry, and when all of the markets started putting in those natural food sections, and we went and we pitched them, and we were just like, they were like, oh, well, you can't have this, you can't have this. We're like, of course, like, we never, like, oh, we fit into that category. We never even knew we fit into this category because that always was that way. So, yeah, it was like that whole rise of that.
Said another way, if you stick with traditional thinking, you're not going to do anything special. If you get away from traditional thinking and non-traditional thinking, which in the early days was the whole health food approach, and now, of course, there's so many brands that have taken off on that approach. And the realization, because scientific research is so strong now and exponential about how important it is what we are putting in our mouths, what we are putting in our bodies, that will impact our longevity.
Amazing. We might have time for one more question for Dr. Levine.
Dr. Levine, my name is Amish Shah. I'm an entrepreneur here, and I just enjoyed the conversation so much. And the question that I'd ask you is, I'm in a peer group called YPO. Amongst my peer group, I would say, we're running companies that we founded from 200 million to $1 billion. The bad data is, I'd say roughly 70%, not myself, but 70% of us are divorced. 50% of us probably don't have the relationship with our children. Everybody's about 50 years old. So the question really comes down to balance, is how do you balance your life, family, health, spouse, relationships with children, when also having to invest the time commitment that's needed to take a business, to fruition into success. How do you think about it? People ask me that when I speak, and I never know how to answer. I change the subject. So I'd love to know, because you look good, and you're flying home for your wife's birthday, so I think you might have a secret that you can share, and I'm taking notes.
Oh boy, I need a little time for that answer, but I'm going to tell you the highlights. I think it comes down to our priorities. I would say I grew up in a house that my dad was always traveling, and he wasn't around. And my mom had to play the mom and dad role. And if I had to think back, I don't think there was enough love in my house between what I saw my mom and dad. And that's why I was petrified to get married. But I met the woman when I was 26 years old to decide to get married at 26. I've always felt that, in life, it's what your priorities are. Marriage is something you have to, like anything else, you have to put your time in, because it's not magically going to go fantastic. You're always going to get headwinds. The wind's not always going to be at our back. It's going to be in our face. And so I have, with my spouse, with Stacy, we're very much focused on our children, but I'm very sensitive as a kind of an athlete's mentality. I want my children to test and take risk and to fail, because if I do too much for them, well, you know what that means. You develop an entitlement generation. And our generation today are fantastic. And I think there are a lot of parents that are doing a great job of giving our children the space, but giving them the support. And so I've always been focused on family for me. If you said, what's your priority? It's family. It's my health, my family, and everything else. And so if I have that as a priority, my other things, learning to build teams and trying to do all these other things to the best of my ability and get success, falls into place. I don't work backwards from that. I've never gone, like I coached my kids in lacrosse all the way up to high school. I even coached high school for 2 years before I started Glow Science. And, it's, to me, that's my primary. That's my focus. Yeah.
Amazing. Perfect. All right. Well, Dr. Levine, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, everybody. It's been so
Happy
good to be
birthday,
here.
Stacy.
And to share the stage with these two amazing people.
Thank you so much, Dr. Levine. Thank you so much. See you soon. All right, so we are open to Stacy and Joe if anyone has any questions.
Okay, so this is for Stacy. I just kind of want to know how it is being a woman entrepreneur, the difficulties you had to go through just because it is a male-dominant career path.
This is easy. Seriously, it's one of the key motivators why I started Be Bold Bars. There is no more important time than right now for women to step up. And it's the one thing that when I was feeling dysfunctionally upset about shit that was going on in the world in the last couple of years, I was like, well, what is it that I know how to do? And I felt like if there is a time to show I have twin girls, if there is a time to do it, that I need to do it now. And so, I started in '97, the pita chip company. I never realized that, you kind of expect a lot of what was happening with, being a female entrepreneur, and especially going to the manufacturing of ovens and dealing with a lack of respect, with going into a meeting with David and Mark and having the guy who's selling us the machine shake their hand and not shake my hand. And having to bite my tongue and in that situation, and really decide which is more important to me, that this guy shakes my hand or that I get that damn oven.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
So you come, you are exposed to it. You do get a little bit numb by it, but I really do feel like right now, is the opportunity for a lot of women, and it's part of the Stacy's Rise project and part of like even starting Be Bold. It's one of the reasons why I started it right now.
Right here.
Hello, my name is Courtney, and my question is for Joe. Joe, I really appreciated the story of Reebok, and I am wondering if you could give us a little update on where Reebok is now. Is that still held by Reebok? Is it an independent company? If you could just give us a little synopsis, please.
I had that same question.
So we're talking about where the Reebok company is now.
Correct.
Well, I think it's at a very important and very exciting time. For 15 years, it's been the property of Adidas, and Adidas kept the brand in the shadows. Right now, ABG, the one thing that they really know how to do is to bring it out from beneath the shadows. They have at least 8 partners globally who will be retailing this product. And so what we're going to see is a company which has sort of gone down to 1.5 billion revenues, and in the next 2 years it will be back up at 5 or 6 billion. That is what's going to happen with Reebok. The strategy, I don't know yet because it's so early. So I don't know where they go for strategy. I just know it's different, and anything that's different has got to be good for Reebok.
And is it privately held, or it's still privately held, or?
ABG is privately held, yes. And now ABG have the Reebok.
All right.
Hi, thank you so much on behalf of the student body. My name is Evan Brown. My question returns to Stacy. I wanted to give you a chance to expand a little bit more on starting your company a month before COVID and all of the stuff that goes along with that. My question is, as a student body that's entering now, some into the workforce just post-COVID, what's some advice that you can give us as we enter into this world that's sort of changed completely, and it's hard to really get advice on what exactly are the keys for us as we enter into the workforce?
Well, I think you're in just from the outside, a good position, because you can really seek out, so many people are looking for good people to join their teams right now. I think you are coming out of school at a great place as compared to 2 years ago. But starting the company pre-COVID, like a month before COVID hit, I'd have to say our greatest skill set doing that was just that we weren't any strangers to adversity. Like, we had fires, we had all kinds of stuff happening, and similar to what Dr. Levine said, is you learn from those losses, and that's more important than your wins. All those losses are what are going to propel you forward. And pre-COVID, we had to, after like 6 months into it, we're just like sucking money dry. Like, oh, it's a bottomless pit. It's like buying a boat.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what did we do? And so we had to pivot. You have to kind of take a step back and say, you can't predict consumer behavior. We just got into Publix, into all of these stores, and nobody's now shopping in the stores. And, so it's like, well, we need that for the money, but then nobody's buying them, but then, all this, like, so we had to do a pivot. I don't know anything about social media. I don't know anything. So we had to go, focus more toward online business. if people are buying their food through HelloFresh and through Instacart, or all these other delivery services, okay, how can we tap into that? So we had to take a step back and really say, this is not the business we intended to go into, or the distribution method that we know, but those things are falling apart. So that's kind of how we looked at it, and my brother and I and Marin, and we all sat down and we took a step back and we said, well, okay, well, what? And we're still doing that now.
We have a question in the front. I'm not. We got a lot of questions.
I'm Sally Mugala. This is for Joe Foster.
This is for Joe.
My question is, what keeps you motivated? What keeps you drive? What gives you the drive every day to wake up in the morning to I have to give a new brand. I have to give a new shoe. What keeps you going? What's the motivation behind that? What keeps you going every day? That's my question.
What keeps you going?
I think what keeps you going every day is your love for what you're doing. Because if you're not in love with it, that's going to be difficult. But when you are in love with it, I think that you look at every day, and you've got to make that extra step. Where can we take it forward? How can we take things forward? Not every day is going to be that good. But if you get up in the morning with the wrong attitude, then it won't be good. But you can turn things around, and I think it's a lot of it's to do with your DNA. If you're enthusiastic, if you're a person that has your glass is half full, not half empty, you've got to have that optimism. And I don't know if you can learn that. I think optimism is something you're either born with or not. But you need to have that. Because you've got to talk to yourself and tell yourself it's good. Every day is good. No matter how bad it becomes, every day is good. And you got to have that continual motivation. I think when it took 11 years to get to America, people say, how did you persevere? Why didn't you give up? And there was never a give up. There was never that. Like Stacy said earlier, we didn't have an exit plan. We just had a plan to grow and to have the enthusiasm. So it's building enthusiasm, and that'll see you through.
All right. Another one in the back.
My next question is for Joe, and you guys talked earlier in your thing about how you kind of expanded with the aerobics, that's when you've seen some of your biggest growth. Now I know in the 90s you guys partnered with Allen Iverson, Sean Kemp, and Shaquille O'Neal for basketball shoes. Was that another big experience of growth for Reebok as a company?
So you partnered with aerobics and expanding into further athletes, such as recognizable NBA athletes. Yep. Was that a vital piece of the growth of the company?
Yes, I mean it is. I think that you need influencers, whichever way you do this, and certainly for sports football, for sports companies, performance is so important. So athletes are so important too. Just in the same way when we first started with aerobics. Having Jane Fonda just buy those shoes and wear those shoes, it's that influence. You need that influence. You need the associations, whether it is Shaq O'Neal or Iverson, Dee Brown, whoever. It's those moments, when Dee Brown sort of dunked that ball from halfway down the court and then bent down and pumped up his shoes. Those are visions that everybody wanted a pair of pumps then. So it's so important.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Wolf. First of all, I wanted to say thank you to Cameron for finding me on LinkedIn and persisting to get my business partner Deb and I here. I'm the founder of the Purpose Partners, and we believe in building purpose-based companies. But I also think that there's something to building your own personal brand. You've both built great brands that are public-facing, but what would you say is the thing that you wanted to be known for personally?
It's kind of for both of you. So, building the business, what was that thing that you wanted to be known for, either your personal brand or the business?
You want to go, or do I want to go?
You want to go?
I want to go. Okay. I want to go. Right. Well, for me,
Age before beauty, right?
I think it was just the brand. Nobody knew Joe Foster, and that wasn't my objective. I mean, we've got to go way, way back. We didn't have televisions. Well, we did have television. We didn't have computers. We didn't have smartphones. We didn't have what we have today in social media. So, we were growing a brand, and we just wanted one name, Reebok. So this wasn't a matter of pushing Joe Foster forward. And for me, it was always, how do we get the brand known? What happens? So we didn't try and confuse anything by bringing in other names. For me, it was just simply, let's build a brand. And it worked, and that was the pleasure. That was, Reebok, certainly during the 80s, became so well known in the USA. We were everywhere, and that was fantastic. And so it was building that brand, always the name.
So I think for me, for us, it was more, and I know my name is on the bag, but that was kind of secondary. For us, it was more trust. We wanted to be the bag of chips that you didn't have to turn it over to read the ingredient. We wanted the brand to stand for, that, okay, well, I know I don't have to turn this bag over to know what it is and that it's going to taste, and then also is taste. We launched during a time where anything that was good for you did not taste good. And so we wanted to be the one that tasted good, and that's first. And it is a very similar pathway for Be Bold bars, because we want that to symbol, first and foremost, is that taste and that balance of taste and goodness and wellness.
Amazing. We're going to open it up to 2 more questions. So whoever is next. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my question is for Stacy. I have, throughout listening to your story, noticed that there's been a lot of times where your business has pivoted from maybe your original intention to a secondary product that actually became more popular than what you started out with. How do you maintain the flexibility, the positive attitude, and recognize that point where your business is going into another direction and thriving in that other direction? How do you take that and accept it and recognize it and proceed positively with that?
So those are really hard decisions, and sometimes they're made for you. So initially, pivoting from the cart to the pita chips, we were trying to get a location in downtown Boston. People were like, you can take your food cart and stand in line between Starbucks and Obon Pan and Dunkin' Donuts and all that. And trying to get a spot where we also had our following, it was really difficult, and we didn't know if we would get an indoor space, and it was very hard and a lot of challenge. And we were like, well, or we can launch the pita chips, and we were like, well, we could grow larger, faster, make a living, so that's why we started researching going down that direction. And then with Be Bold bars, like I said to this other woman back there, during the times, and feeling like, well, if I was first of all, I felt like I had a successful product selling at the juice bar, so I already knew that. There were a lot of similarities to the pita chip company, and I really felt like I needed to do something as a female entrepreneur in this atmosphere right now, not just for myself, but I have 2 daughters, and it's I felt it was really important to represent.
Thank you.
We do have one over here. Final question.
Sure. Thank you so much. I would like to ask somebody like me, okay, I'm an engineering student and an aspiring biomedical engineer, but I also feel like I'm business-minded to some extent. And, I feel like it's crazy sometimes because it's kind of mixing passion and talent, but I believe one can always be what they want to be at the end of the day. So what kind of a mentality do I need to keep that motive inside of me? Thank you.
Are you saying the combination of passion and talent, what does that kind of formulation look like for them? Or?
All right. So looking at me, I've got a passion for engineering and aspiring for biomedical engineering. But I also feel like I'm talented in some business aspects of life, like graphic designing and many other things, so to speak of. But, sometimes, I get pulled to one end rather than stay focused on both, because I need both in life, a career and probably a business. Just like Dr. I'm sorry.
Levine?
Dr. Levine, yes, he's a scientist, but also went into business. But, his business is also, in line with his career. But I'm also probably into business that is outside of my career, which has nothing to do with engineering. And, I'm asking, what kind of a mentality do I need to keep the composure to keep moving?
Well, what you didn't hear backstage from Dr. Levine was about that first company he was talking about that failed.
Yeah.
Right? And it was a large financial, and he got financial investors and all that. And so, it's the backstage dinner conversation that I was, those are the kind of, those kinds of, you have to be willing to take that risk. I don't know if the question was directed toward me or not, but you do have to be willing, first of all, to take the risk, and second of all, to be willing to, well, how much you're going to risk and how much you're willing to lose. And that's more what I feel like drives you, at least for myself, drives you forward,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how long are you going to postpone your student loans? How long are you going to, all those kinds of questions where you have to ask yourself.
Certainly. So he was asking the mentality you should acquire for your career to hold you accountable for the work you're doing, if you want to touch on that.
Yeah. I think that to be an entrepreneur, you've got to understand that that's taking risks. And you've got to decide when you're going to take that risk. And you can get too confused, I think, in life if you ask yourself too many questions or ask too many people too many questions. You've got to focus, really, on what you see is a future. And if it fails, that's a good lesson, because you've obviously focused a bit not quite in the right direction. But certainly, to be an entrepreneur, and I'm sure Stacy understands and agrees, you take risks. And it's not gambling. It's just, I can do this. And then you've got to believe in it. And if you believe in it, the risk is far less than if you're hesitant. You've just got to go for it. And don't worry. If you fail, if you get problems, those are lessons. And you come up again. Because if you're meant to be an entrepreneur, that's what you'll do. If you're not, then you move on.
Yeah. Cameron, can I answer another question that was asked down here by one of the women? Asked something about work-life balance. And I did want to address that because being a single mom of 2 girls, and just for a different perspective than Dr. Levine, there's no such thing when you're in my situation. There is no such thing. It's all muddled into one. And one of the benefits that I found of being an entrepreneur and having our own factory and being able to work either late at night or early in the morning, or I would bring my kids with me. I was ready for 1 child, not 2. You slap on that breastfeeding sign on your office door, and you keep people out whether you're feeding or not. So for me, there was really it was all one. There was no work-life balance.
Amazing. Well, you guys, everyone, thank you so much for coming tonight or this evening. It means so much. And to the speakers, thank you so much. And to our amazing sponsors, it's a great day. Thank you guys so much.